And welcome back to the Ultra Running Guys. You got Jeremy Reynolds and Jeff Winchester of the Ultra Running Guys. And the reason that we're here is to help you take your next step in your ultra running journey. And if you've been around for a while, you know we've been doing a podcast since 2020, but this is a new series that we're doing just in case you're not sure where that next step is going to lead you. So this is all about spotlighting different races, and who better to hear about that race than from the race directors themselves.
Yeah, so for me, I know that we've been doing this series for a few weeks now, but what I'm super excited about is the one we're talking about tonight is very near and dear to my heart and to your heart. It was the first 100-miler that we both attempted. You finished it, I DNF'd it, but I did finish this one as my first 100 again a little bit later on as well. I came back. But so it's near and dear to our heart. We're super excited about it, super excited to talk about all the details and to learn from the race director tonight. But real quick to let you know, the Umstead 100 is what we're focusing on. It takes place in Raleigh, North Carolina at the William B Umstead State Park. The course is 8 loops of 12.5 miles long each, and it is crushed gravel and dirt compacted course. It provides a really good solid footing for you, so you're not going to slip, you're not going to fall, you're not going to have a lot of pitfalls along the way, you're not going to trip on any kind of roots as well. So it's a really good course to run on. Despite being on the East Coast, it is a little bit of elevation in it. It's not mountainous or anything like that. It's considered runnable, but there is 8,000 feet of total elevation. And the crazy thing about it is that a lot of people will start walking some of the hills, particularly the ones between miles 7 and 9 on the back half of the loop, because that's where it gets pretty gnarly. And so runners do have 30 hours to compete the race, and it is also a Western States qualifier. So with that, we would like to welcome to our show Rhonda Hampton, the race director of the Umstead 100. Hi, Rhonda.
Hi, guys. Good to see you.
Good to see you, and welcome to the show. We've hugged before, so we talked about that a little bit before the show. We won't go into any details on that, but really great to talk to you and to kind of introduce our listeners to the Umstead 100.
Well, thank you for having us. I'm representing my co-race director, Chris Squires, and just want to mention his name, and I'm excited to represent us. And thank you for giving us this honor.
Absolutely.
And for being running us as your first 100. That's my most favorite thing, is to have people run us as the first 100. So thank you.
Well, like Jeff said, near and dear to our hearts. We were kind of telling some stories before, we started recording here, but we've experienced it. We've actually talked about it several times on our podcast. And so if you've been around, this is a race you've heard. But we want to know from you, Rhonda, you've been doing this a little while with Umstead. I'm guessing that you've got some pretty strong emotional ties. We'll talk about all the kind of the tactical stuff that a runner may want to know, right? But I want to start with you. What is your favorite thing about the Umstead 100?
That comes later, but my favorite thing about Umstead 100 is riding the course on race day. Our Blake Norwood, who organized everything about the race and started and made it so that he would be out on the course. You get staff that can take care of everything while you're out there, and then you get to be out there with the runners. You get to be, if they're in rain for 24 hours, you're out there and a lot of it with them. And so you get to see what they're going through. You get to encourage them. You get to talk with them. And it's my most favorite time. I'm not supposed, like I said, don't tell anybody you're having so much fun, but it is a wonderful, wonderful part of the race. And it is my favorite part. It's because I get to be there with you.
I've seen the smile on your face when you come by on a bike too. So I believe you.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of other good things too, but it definitely is worth everything that I do all year long.
Fantastic.
That is awesome.
I've been helping with the race since 2009, and I took over in 2014.
Well, that's what I was about to ask you. You mentioned Blake Norwood kind of gave you that advice. So how long has the race been around, and who is Blake Norwood?
So Blake Norwood is the very first race director, and the race is we're the 13th oldest race in the United States. Blake and Tom were the first two to run it. They were actually running in Umstead Park to train for Hard Rock, and because of where we live, they figured they better run 100 miles to train for Hard Rock because of Hard Rock, right? And so they ran it, and they decided that it would be a really great thing to have in North Carolina to have 100 to run. So the next year they had it, and so that was 1995 was the first year. We had 39 runners and 16 runners finished. And this year we actually had 2 of those runners run with us again. So we have a longevity of runners running with us, which is another really cool thing about our race.
That's very cool.
That's incredible. So why do you think the runners keep coming back?
Should I say, you want to tell us? No. Well, you haven't
I know, we keep coming back. I have run it a few times.
Yeah, we've both been out there a few times.
But we have a comment sheet at the end of each race and ask people to let us know what they think and what we can improve and what they like. And our number one comment is the volunteers. We have 350 volunteers. We have 33 key staff members that work most of the year. We're all volunteers. One of my favorite lines from a guy that works all year long, I'll say, Ben, you're doing all this. He goes, Rhonda, it's a labor of love. And they just love to see the runners succeed. And they pour their hearts and soul. People make their vacations to volunteer at our race. And it's just really, that has to be the number one reason that they come back. So I think another reason is that Blake really knew what it takes to get people through the first 100. And he organized it so well. And all I do, and now with Chris, we just add the oil into the machine and make sure the tires are full of air, and it just keeps going. We really try to keep it the heart of what Blake started, because he knew what he was doing. He died in 2014, right after I took over. He was supposed to work 5 more years with me, so I was kind of mad at him. But it's okay. And but he really knew what it took, and he put all of those elements into the race. And one of the important things is giving back to your volunteers. And he established a volunteer store that our volunteers can come right in before they start their shift and pick anything in the store. We have things from blankets to cups to shirts to you name it, and it's in there. And they can pick anything. The first time I volunteered, they showed me, and I was like, you can have anything? And it's like, yeah, it's just, he knew how to appreciate his volunteers, and he did an awesome job. And then he really knew runners and what they needed, and he put that in there.
That's awesome.
So I think that's why people keep coming back. We have a ton of other reasons. Of course, the Western States qualifier, we're a nonprofit, so everything goes back into the race and back into the park.
Let me jump in for just a second. You mentioned the volunteers, and I'm going to go a little bit of a segue here. Sorry. You mentioned volunteers being just critical to the race. And one thing that I find very unique about the Umstead 100 versus some of the other 100s I've been around and even have either volunteered at or have participated in is that you actually have volunteer pacers. And not every 100 offers this. And so if you're running this race and you don't have a pacer with you because they didn't show up, you couldn't find one, or whatever it is, if it gets to a point within the race, you can go buy this volunteer tent and get yourself a pacer who is there to literally pace you for however many laps you want. And if they can't do as many laps you want, they've got other volunteers in line to help you with that as well. It's a cool, unique thing I think the Umstead offers that not all of them do.
Blake installed that, and we're really fortunate with how he set it up with the loops, only 2 aid stations. You know, we can concentrate and be able to help a lot more for first timers. We really are set up for first timers, but we love by having so many people keep coming back to a good mix of first and repeaters are one of the things I love most about the race.
I'll jump on that. So if you're listening now, you've heard, we talked about it's 12.5-mile loops. So it's 8 loops gives you your 100 miles. There's 2 aid stations. You've got the main one kind of at the start stop, and then the other one's right about 7-ish miles, somewhere in there, right? About halfway. 6.5.
6.7 plus.
Yeah. Jeff was chomping on the bit to throw out that number.
It depends, because they won't let us be on the bridge now. For some reason, so we've had this shifted up. So we're working now on where we're actually going to end up being. But it'll be around 6.5 to 7.
So bottom line is you're not going any further than that without great aid. You've got pacers that can jump in to help. And if you're interested in volunteer pacing, I highly recommend it. People have amazing stories from doing that. I think it's very rewarding. So all that to say, and the course is very runnable, right? So we're not talking single track. It's kind of fire road type, no tripping hazards. There is the elevation. You get about 1,000 feet per loop, right? And it ends up being about 8,000. You going to correct me?
I was just saying, so if you're not from really flat areas, it's more like a rolling hill, and it really gives you a lot of opportunity to change how you run, what muscles you're using. Your stride can change for the different parts and the different sections, and it's really nice gentle rolling hills, except a couple little steeper ones, but in general.
I totally agree. So it gives you some natural walking points. It actually is a very, very good first. It also is a pretty fast. If you're from the flat area like we are, it's mountains. We're running mountains out there. But let me ask this, because we just talked about all these great things, right? And I do think it's a fantastic first. But what do you think that people underestimate about Umstead 100? What should they be prepared for?
Well, the hills are the one thing they underestimate. And I think with any 100, it's just the distance. And you hear, oh, Umstead's an easy 100. Well, no 100 is easy. Right. You need to remember that. No 100 is easy. It is an easier one. And I think they think, oh, it's easier, so I won't have to train as hard or do as many miles, or maybe I'll sleep in today instead of doing my long run and things like that. But the bigger thing is I don't think that they realize how much it's all mental, especially if it's their first one, and not being mentally prepared. And it's one reason that we have a qualifier, 50-mile qualifier, is Blake thought it was very, very important that you get to the 50 or over 12 hours, because rarely do you go 24 to 30 hours unless you're really fast people. But, the regular Joes and the Rondas who are more at the end of the back, you have to learn how do I stay up for 12 hours without getting tired? How do I stay up for 30 hours without getting tired? And if you can do 30, then you're going to be able to go on and do 35 or 40 or 48 at Hard Rock. You're going to be able to. So it's a good building spot. And but as a beginner, you don't understand that. So they do underestimate what they need to do it. So our qualifier, I think, helps them to find out how to do the hydration, which always is a hard issue for them to deal with. And then the mental, because the second half is all mental. And the first time I stepped on the line, a guy next to me says, "Hey, is this your first one?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "You're going to run the first 50 with your feet and the second 50 with your head." I ran the first 50 in my exact time of all my 50s, and I was like, what in the heck am I going to do for the next 50? And your body takes over, and it just does it. And as long as you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, you can do it. And I don't think everybody's quite mentally ready for what do I need to do to get past those low spots. And
I will say too, one other thing that I think is great from the race, and it was Blake, I believe, that put it together, but you've got a link on your homepage is about, it's really tips on how to run the Umstead 100, right? And it might even be for your first 100. You got the,
yeah, it's actually under the training.
Okay, under training.
Yeah,
it's how to train for and run your first 100 at the Umstead 100. And it's a PDF document that literally will give you advice on how to approach each loop of the course. I personally have read it 1,000 times. Not even exaggerating. I feel like I've read it at least 100 times before every time I ran the race. And so it's a really well put together document. And I think it's helpful for you to kind of get this vision of it. It is a race report on steroids, to be quite honest with you, kind of as a way to prep. It's really well done.
It also covers, though, if you're running a different race for your first time, it does cover some mindset, some of the things you're talking about, hey, what to expect mentally. But then it will give you the very specifics on loop one, right? Here's what to do. So I would highly recommend going to check out that link.
So, the other thing I think they underestimate is how hard is it to come by your car 8 times and not stop.
So true.
That's the mental toughness part of our whole thing of our race is that. And the other thing is, since we do have the 50-mile option, and that if you stop at 50, well, you can get credit, because Blake always felt if you do all this training all year, but you're not able to finish the 100, you really need something that you can take as a qualifier to somebody else and say, hey, I've gone this far. And so that's kind of an easy out. And Blake always said, don't have something in your pocket that you can use to get out of the race. And that is kind of something you have in your pocket. And so,
like car keys.
Yeah, it's a lot better. Somebody just takes the car away.
Well, that's what I like about your finish of each loop. It's like a horseshoe. And so you come in, you kind of check in, and you just kind of go by the aid station, you go right back out the way you came. And I don't even think I've ever saw my car. Plus my family would just make it going, but it's well designed even on that, I thought too. So if somebody is going to drop from your race or DNF, what do you think is going to knock them out?
I think it's all the same things that you run into in any 100. Dehydration is always a big one. Not really saying I can do this. One guy said to me, I was able to do it because I never doubted I would do it. And I think that's the most important thing. I think when you're training, visualizing the finish line and seeing it and knowing you can do it is probably the most important. And that's every race.
Right.
That's everything that you do. As I mentioned earlier, the most important thing I believe is what do you need to do to pick yourself up when you hit I call it the 65-mile mark, which is the cry mark, and everybody hits it. It might be at 50 miles, it might be at 75, but it's a 65 cry mark. And it's when your body's switching over on how it feeds itself and takes care of things. So you need to learn, how do I get past that? What can I do? What are things that I need to think mentally about to get through that? And that's one thing. The others are, don't underestimate the course. It's an easy 100. It's still 100 miles. Mm-hmm. Do your work.
100%.
It's still there. Yeah.
I'm laughing
I know I mentioned it
because I've heard of people call it a wall. They've called it bonking. They've called it all the other things, but never a 65-mile cry mark.
It's true, though.
It's true. I love that.
So we talked about aid stations a little bit in terms of placement, but I know the answer because we've been there, right? If somebody's never been there, describe your aid stations. What should they expect in terms of support?
Well, if you listen to our comments from all of our runners, our aid stations are the best ever. And that's not my words, that's the runners' words. They have everything you want. They're full service. And again, with our format of 2 aid stations, 12.5-mile loop, we're very blessed above all other races of being able to do this. And we have anything you want at an aid station. And if you don't see it on the table, ask for it. And if we don't have it, we will get it. We're 3 miles, no matter how you go, to get to a store. And our goal is, if you need it, we want you to have it. So if it's not on the table, for hot dogs, hamburgers, chicken, we have vegan, we have vegetarian, we have, you name it, we have stuff there. For whatever you need, we'll have it. And so just ask. We do go through our Gatorade is our drink. Some people hate it, some people love it. It's what we do. We do ask that you carry hydration with you, but we always have cups and whatever you would need to get through. If you need something, we'll have soups. We have a list on our website. Again, if you have any questions about the race, it's on there. We have a full page of 2 lines, maybe even 3 lines of everything that's at our aid stations. What we don't carry are any of the no medications, no Advil or anything like that. We've decided that that's not something we would carry. The best thing about our aid stations is they're manned by experienced ultra runners. Another favorite thing of mine that Blake did was he did the 100 for the people who were local. Our 50-mile option was because he wanted people to be able to run their first 50 close to home and sleep in their own beds. And he built this ultra running community, and we have a wonderful ultra running community, and they all come out to help. And we have so many 100-milers that come and volunteer in our 350 runner park. And so that's the best things at our aid stations. If you feel awful, someone will have something to help you pass that awful. And it's every single volunteer wants you to succeed as a runner. And I'm sure that happens at every race, but it really is true at ours. And but we have incredible volunteers. Have I said that a lot?
We can 100% confirm. I think we both got personal stories about how your volunteers have helped us get through, move forward. They're willing to do whatever. I know both of us have had our feet taken care of, that kind of thing. In terms of the food, we always recommend, right, carry what you want for the race, but this one is one where you're going to get variety. You're not really going to be hurting if, you may be looking for that something specific. Some of my favorite things are always like the fruits, the easy grabs, right? Those types of things. But I'll tell you, especially at night when the temperature drops or something, that soup, that stuff comes in clutch. I'm always just stoked about your aid stations.
I have yet to get to where I can actually eat a hamburger, though. Some people do. I can't do that yet.
I don't think I've eaten a burger, but I think I've eaten like quesadillas. Like I've definitely eaten some hearty stuff, walking through there. And
I have run by people though carrying a burger.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They're down that. And it's awesome because they're doing it. It's available.
Pizza.
Yeah, and we have pizza. Yeah. We're, again, fortunate at one of our aid stations. It's right with our dining hall where we have our medical staff, but we have a full kitchen, so we can provide anything. We provide true baked potatoes. They're not canned or anything. They're real baked potatoes at both aid stations. And boiled eggs, you name it, we have it.
That's awesome. Yeah,
the
you have a full
lentil
list.
soup. Yeah, the full list is on the website. And, my kitchen people love making the lentil soup. That's their favorite. So.
Let's switch gears and talk about registration for just a minute. I know that registration is opening up for this race for this year that we're obviously making this recording for the show on Wednesday, September 13th at 8 p.m. Eastern. So it's very intentional. I'm saying that for those who are listening because it is a Wednesday night. It is at 8 p.m. Eastern. It is on September 13th, and you have to be present online at that time. Rhonda, how do you register for your race?
I don't. No, I'm kidding. And everybody's like, oh, it's so hard to get in. And I find that hard to truly believe because we have a ton of ways that you can get into our race. Now, strictly speaking, we do believe our first 250 is a first come, first serve on the computer. We have it now. We let in thinking it's on. How we do it is again on our website and the registration. It changes sometimes as we try to narrow down the best way, but I think now we take in 30 people first, get them started, and then we'll open up 30 more spots, or it might be like 60 and then 60 more. And then if people don't take the first spots or they leave it hanging and they're like, should I run? Should I not? After 10 minutes, it goes away. And it goes back into the pool. So it takes us about an hour to finish. We keep opening up, and each of the spots keep coming open again and again. But we get 250 that way. And that, again, starts on the Wednesday. If we could repeat that again, that it's Wednesday, September the 13th, because this is the first time we've been on.
Audio.
Okay.
It's come back. Sorry. It just came back.
All right.
It's you?
Yeah,
we're good. So you're repeating the date.
This is the first time that it's been on Wednesday in a really long time. We'd always been on Saturday, but we've gotten a lot of comments that runners say, I'm racing on Saturday. So we decided to try something different. Again, this was Chris's decision or push, because Rhonda doesn't change anything. That's a joke. But again, the 8 o'clock, he was trying to make it better for the 8 o'clock at night is trying to make it better for the West Coast so that they won't have to be sitting in traffic or anything, or they could do it after work and stay at work and maybe have their computers be a little bit better than the ones at home to get in. So that's our first 250. And then because everybody said, oh, that first come, first serve isn't fair for people, you should do lotteries. We installed a lottery also. And so we have a second chance lottery for the people that don't like first come, first serve. And so that starts on September the 16th at 12 o'clock in the morning. And we leave it open for a week. And anybody who wants to still get into the race can sign up for the lottery. And we have 50 spots that we'll pick from that group. And so that's their main push. But of the second chance lottery and after the first registration, we also have competitive 10 spots open. We have 20 spots for 500 or to 1,000 mile club members. We have 20 spots for volunteers. We have 3 spots, and people who've taken advantage of this and would in the future are going to hate me, but we have 3 spots that are guaranteed entry. If you work for 8 hours the year before, you can get entry the next year. And then we also have our Blake Norwood Memorial Awards, which that limits it again, because that's for the enlisted military, full-time military ultra runners. And then we also have the wait list, which you have to be in the second chance lottery in order to be on the wait list.
That makes sense.
We take the first 20 after, because usually we do pretty good at figuring how many people will not run of the people we let in. So our calculations are already figured for drops and people who don't show up on race day. So we use the first 20 after that, and then anybody who was on second chance lottery and says, put me at the bottom of the wait list. I'll be number 21, 24, 40, So we give everybody an opportunity if they want.
But there's a lot of ways to register for this race. So what I would say real quick, just to recap, the most important way that most people are going to get in is going to be the 250 that get in on Wednesday, September 13th by being online at 8 o'clock. I did look at your site a little bit before we started recording. It is going to open up for 60 runners the first time, 60 slots. Yep. And it's going to repeat every 2 minutes. Is right? Every 2 minutes? Every 2 minutes. And so what we've learned is that you've got to time it right when you hit that entry button. And so I will tell you personally, I made it in the last cycle last year when I got into, or 2 years ago when I got in, by clicking the button a half second before it told me to, and I somehow got in. But don't give up. Keep letting it go through the cycles, and eventually you can get in. Most people will get in if they try. I have found.
Yeah, to that point. So 2021 is the last time we both ran it. You got in the last one, and then I ended up getting selected in the lottery. So we both made it in different methods, after just it's like an ultra, right? When you go through and you keep hitting the button and you don't get selected, don't give up. Keep the faith.
Yep. And then you get 10 minutes to fill out your registration form. So take your time once you're there. Once you're in, and just fill it out and get it in right.
And then I do want to highlight what you said again. So the Blake Norwood Memorial Awards, there's 4 spots. This is being released on August 19th. We're not doing you a solid here because the last day to get entry into that is August 21st. So if you're listening to this on a Saturday, you got 2 days. If you're full-time enlisted military, try to take advantage of that for sure. That would be another option for you. But when you heard Rhonda say earlier, there is a 50-mile qualifier. So if you're looking to run the race and you don't have that, plan ahead. Obviously, get that under your belt. I do agree that it's a great thing to have before you show up at the start line. So interesting registration process, but it's a good one.
Have you ever seen the Big Bang Theory when they're all trying to get into Comic-Con and they go, refresh.
That's exactly what it feels like, too.
It's stressful.
It is.
Because when it gets to 8 o'clock, I remember I had my wife on a computer in the house. I mean, we've all been there just trying to have multiple people hit that button. It's stressful, but it's exciting.
I apologize for the stress. We've stayed with the first come, first serve because all of our board members and all of the key staff quit lotteries. And we like being the owner of our own destinies. Yeah. So it's
no need to apologize. We're not complaining, right? We're just.
I like the fact it's on a Wednesday at 8 o'clock because of the fact that most people are going to forget it, and I'm going to get in if I choose to register.
And for the record, you talked about Saturdays. I remember I'm an Air Force guy. I remember being in an airplane, sitting on alert, and telling my crew, hey, it's 11:58. I will be back. I went out to the crew truck and sat in there and tried to register and had to come back up. And I think that time I didn't make it that round. But so it actually is something to look forward to as well.
All right. One more question for you, Rhonda, before we wrap up. What does it mean to you to have runners run your race?
you, the most important, or the thing that I love is when we're your first 100. I really like being people's first 100 race. It's, it's great to be the first of anything, right? You love your first one, and that's what it was. I can say that I love Umstead because it was my first too. But like JFK is just special to me. It was my first 50. So your first.
Us as well.
I like being. Sorry?
We were both, JFK was both of our first 50. So it sounds like we share first 50s and first 100s.
Yay.
That basically means we're taking over as race director for the Umstead 100 when she retires.
It's destiny.
Destiny.
Sorry, we interrupted you.
Yeah, sorry.
Proceed.
You were saying.
No. I'm honored that people choose us. But with volunteering, I always tell, like when you're talking to people and you tell them who you are or that you're part of this organization, and you mention that they should volunteer, and they're like, "Oh, you just want volunteers?" And I'm like, "No, I'm giving you a gift. This is a very special group of people, and ultra runners are the nicest people in the world." But so my saying, and I wanted to say this, is runners are nice. The further they run, the nicer they are. So ultra runners are ultra nice, and our entire volunteer staff and the runners who are there and the people who come to support them are all as nice as ultra runners. And it's just a wonderful place to be. And so for people to come and to be part of that just adds more fuel. It's like a big bonfire of wonderfulness. And so that's having them come is what's important. And they're always so excited. One time, we were turning pictures into a certain magazine, which I won't mention, and they said, "Your pictures don't show any emotion." And I'm like, "Yeah, they show happiness." And they're like, "That's not the emotion we want." It's like, but everybody's happy. I mean, you look at the pictures, everybody's smiling, and it's so nice to feel that and to be part of people doing something that will change their lives. You're not the same person when you finish that 100-mile line as you were before you stepped across it. You are definitely a different person, and it's neat to be part of that. So,
and
that's what it
said,
means.
Rhonda will be there to hug you in that moment. So,
and Chris.
Yeah, apologies.
Depends on if she's sleeping or not.
Yeah, Chris likes the finish line better than I do. I like being out on the course. So
I love it.
Well,
you might get more hugs from him.
I will piggyback on that because we do have a lot of newer runners that plug into the show, or if you're just happen to be, searching and you find this, what you said about volunteering, I 100% agree. And so a lot of times when people ask, "Hey, I don't know if I could do ultra running," and my advice is usually go find a race and volunteer because you're going to fall in love with it. And if you can volunteer at Umstead, then it goes double to me because it's just an incredible experience. So I agree. But
I think the hardest thing for us is our volunteers end up being runners, so we have to keep getting more volunteers because they find out if you see what they do, the back of the packers are like, "Geez, I can do this too." And you can. Anybody can do this if you choose to and you want to. You have to want it, but you can do it.
I love it. And that sounds like a perfect place to wrap it up. For if you're tuning in, just thank you so much for taking the time, Rhonda. It has just been incredible talking with you. Umstead100.org. That's the website. You can go find all the information that we talked about in the registration. We talked about the key dates, September 13th, and then August 21st, if you're military and you're looking for that. But for the Ultra Running Guys family, if you've been around for a while, gosh, we just appreciate you so much. Our motto, Rhonda, is just show up. You do that year after year along with your crew. And just thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We enjoyed it. Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the content. If you haven't already, don't forget to check out our full lineup of podcast episodes that are designed to help you take your next step in your ultra running journey.
So be sure to check the links below, and you can visit our website at theultrarunningguys.com or download your episodes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, when in doubt, just show up.
See ya.